Hi guys, it's me, Arden Lee. Today's video is about what can you do if you've been cheated on in the past and now you're in a new relationship and you're finding it hard to trust again. I want to talk a little bit about the way that this kind of trauma works. An experience of trauma, such as, let's say, cheating or other forms of betrayal, can put us into a state of hypervigilance where we have so much fear of that same experience happening to us again that our minds will go on overdrive looking for any shred of evidence that something like that might happen again so that we can avoid it. However, obviously, this state of being is not the healthiest one to be in when we're entering into a new relationship, right? We want to understand that on some level, we are working with a biological organism that is designed to protect us, but it doesn't always do the best job. If we think about how our coping mechanisms form, especially during our developmental years as we're growing up, we may experience some sort of harm or hurt or wounding. And from that place, we can turn our entire lives into avoiding that ever happening again. If you look at people who cope with certain childhood wounds by becoming more attractive. Certain people who cope with certain childhood wounds by becoming super tough, right? Someone that no one would ever want to mess with. Some people cope with childhood wounds by becoming really rich and saying, I'm never going to go without again, right? And while it's great to be able to take control and take the reins and say, well, now I'm an adult and I have, some control over how I present myself, how attractive I want to be, or I have some control over maybe how much money I want to make. I want to make this my life purpose and go forward and make sure that I'm secure and my family's secure and other generations that come after me are secure. But it never really addresses the actual wound. And in a case such as cheating and betrayal, if our bodies decide that the coping mechanism for I will never be cheated on again is I will look for every single possible shred of evidence that I am being cheated on so I can avoid the moment where I have to find out. Well, we have to zoom out and look at what that picture is doing to the relationship, right? In the same way that perhaps that person whose coping mechanism is money might have to zoom out and say, like, hey, are you also paying attention to your relationships in your family? Are you paying attention? Are you being present with people? The same way that someone who's trying super, super hard to be attractive to avoid whatever situation their own wounding caused, you want to zoom out and say, hey, wait a minute. Maybe this isn't about your attractiveness. Maybe you chose some people who didn't appreciate you. Maybe you don't have to do this. We get stuck with a lot of programming, you guys. We get stuck with a lot of programming that really tries to solve our lives for us. But it very rarely works without conscious awareness of what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're creating. So here we have someone operating out of a wound. I've been cheated on before. So therefore, I want to make sure that I never experience that pain again. So my body, my unconscious, is telling me to look for signs of cheating everywhere. This is why conscious awareness is important. Because when we understand what is going on and why we're searching for more and more evidence that we might be about to be cheated on, then we want to zoom out and look at what we're actually creating in the relationship. How fun is it for anyone to be in a relationship with someone where their every move is constantly being questioned? At some point, we have to acknowledge that hypervigilance not only isn't serving us, it's a form of control that's not actually even really going to do anything. There's been some debate going around lately about, we are never really safe, and that's okay. And there's been some backlash to that, right? The backlash says, or I believe what's been going around, what's being said is that you don't need anything from anyone else to feel safe. And then the backlash comes back and says, well, I'm a sexual assault survivor. Was I safe when I was being assaulted, right? How dare you say that I don't need anything else from anyone else to feel safe when I've been hurt so many times? And I get it, because if you're still in your trauma, that's exactly the way that I would have reacted too. And that's why I don't go around saying things like that, because they can be very, very misinterpreted. But it's the meaning of that phrase, that we don't need anything from anyone else to ever feel safe. The intention behind it is essentially this idea that there's nothing we can do to fully ensure our protection and safety. We get hit by a bus tomorrow. Of course, it is not only good, but I would say in many ways necessary for us to have our boundaries and to enforce them, and to say, well, if you're going to keep doing X, Y, Z to me, then you don't get to be in my life anymore. But understand that that's a choice that we make. That's not something that we need from anyone else to feel safe. It's a choice that we make for ourselves. If we're constantly going around being in fear of what might happen, then we're allowing that fear to take over our lives. I've been betrayed before. I actually, in relationships, before I got my shit together, I actually, I felt a wound because I had actually never had anyone cheat on me and then want to come back. I'd always only been abandoned. I felt so betrayed that I wished someone would cheat on me and then actually feel sorry and apologize and want to come back and be with me again. Instead, people just left. People just chose other people over me and didn't even want to make things right. So understand that when I say all of this, I'm not speaking from a place of lightness about betrayal. Betrayal sucks. But ultimately, it's really up to our own discernment. We trust people that we choose to trust. We take that risk, understanding that it's entirely possible that we could get hurt. When we do, we take that information and we adjust our boundaries accordingly. If we're forever living in fear, we're actually not really fully in the relationship at all. What point is there to being in a relationship if you are not going to surrender into it and experience that trust and that intimacy that ideally is supposed to come with it? If you are constantly living in fear of betrayal and abandonment, you'll never even enjoy the relationships that you're in. It's natural to feel this desire to avoid pain. It's so natural, it is biologically ingrained in us. People will do wild amounts of things to not have to feel that same pain. People will become alcoholics and addicts. People will respond to the pain of sexual trauma sometimes by becoming obese. But ultimately, what are we going to do? So if you're in that situation and you feel that hypervigilance come up, what do you do in the moment? Learn when you're having a reaction like that. Learn when you're having that anxiety come up, right? You probably feel that little shot of cortisol. Might feel like sparks in your chest. Oh God, what's happening? And take a moment. Breathe. Remember where you are right now and ask yourself, am I reacting to something that's going on in the present? Or am I reacting to a story that I'm making up about it because I'm scared? And from that place, you can even share that with your partner. We're not expected to go into relationships being perfect, as long as we're working toward our relational health. And say, I'm having a feeling about something right now and I'm really scared. I know you're hanging out with your coworker, and I want to believe that you're just working on a project together, but I'm scared because I've experienced this before, and I'm worried there's something going on that you're not telling me. If there were ever something that came up in our relationship where you felt a need to go outside it without being clear and honest with me, would you tell me? Do we have that much trust in each other that we can be honest about what's going on in the relationship and whether both of us still want to be here? It's a great conversation to have. It's a scary conversation, understandably. But we're not going to achieve the depth of intimacy that we want in our relationships unless we surrender to them. The whole point of relationships is that we are making ourselves vulnerable. And we can't be vulnerable if we're continually protecting ourselves from being hurt. It takes time. It takes trust, understandably. It takes working through that trauma, allowing yourself to feel it, heal it, release it. Absolutely. But know that experiencing betrayal, harm, abandonment, and choosing to heal it, and choosing to restore yourself, and choosing to move forward and love anyway, each time, it's the most courageous thing you can possibly do. We can't live in fear. We can, but it'll be miserable. We can't live in fear and experience all of the joy that comes from that relaxation and surrender. So if you're making a choice, make one that serves you. I recommend being able to dialogue with your body in that way. Hey, I know you're trying to protect me right now, but I think the truth is we're actually cool. Let's look at really what the circumstances are going around here, and let's make a decision from a conscious place. Thank your body for looking out for you when it gets nervous, but understand that ultimately you're the one in the driver's seat. This is your choice for how to respond. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys next time.